Believe it or not. Hello, Gloria Swanson. Nice to see you. We're outside enjoying the cool air. Probably about, I don't know, 28 degrees Celsius still. At 85. Good. There's the boss over there. Look, there she is.
I'm watching for it.
What are you watching?
It's like a
Cake cutter?
satisfaction videos sort of thing.
Yeah. Just got the sprinkler running at the moment on the back lawn. We had really hot, probably November, December. It was really hot. And we've been hot for the last couple of weeks, but we're getting a cool spell, maybe. We're in about 4 or 5 days. Got 4 days of 100 coming up. This is our backyard. That's our back patio up there. And these are just outdoor solar lights, which are all the way through here. As you get closer, they stay brighter. So it lights up the whole backyard. It's not daytime, of course. But a good time to run the sprinkler is at night time. Here's some of our other solar lights. One above the shed. Plenty of light actually to give off. Little fence solar lights. There's a barbecue area, which doesn't look fairly bright, but it is good enough to see everything. Hello, Carolyn. This is the bargain the wife found the other day. What did it cost you? 120? Yeah. Big, sturdy old plastic chairs, and they are really sturdy, high back. And a nice table. So we put it out here next to the lawn. Because it's probably about 4 or 5 degrees cooler out here than it is on the back patio. And it's a good time of night to put the sprinkler on. Yeah, they're really solid. They're heavy plastic chairs, not flimsy ones. But we got enough light out the back here to see everything we need to do. And those sensor lights, like I'll show you one here that I set off when the missus does the hanging of the washing, the extra, because they stay on a certain luminescence and they get triple in brightness when you walk past them, so she can hang the washing up midnight, still see like daylight. Turn this around. You'll get annoyed by the sensor lights because every time I move, I'm setting these two off. But yeah, so that's what we're doing tonight, having a nice little cool sit down at the back, run the sprinkler for 20 minutes. But we've got hundreds of little crickets, haven't we?
Mm.
A quick question for you too. What do crickets eat other than your veggies? Actually, I don't have any trouble with crickets and the veggies at all, never have. They eat leaves, I think they eat grass, little bugs, I think. See, I told those lights I'd annoy you. Every time I move, I set them off.
I have to go up, sit up there.
That's a good idea. See these lights here, when that goes off, you'll see that the level that it stays on is still fairly bright. So when you walk around, even out the front, we've got these same lights. Rotting plants, yeah. I think they sort of help your garden. So you see those lights now, they've dulled down, but they're reasonably bright still. And because we get lots of sunlight, I mean, they stay on virtually till dawn. Yeah, I think this time of the year they've hatched. We've probably got 200 or 300 of them around. They don't bother us. You moved that light off.
Might have to go up in a minute.
Yeah, we won't be staying on long.
No, my battery's nearly dead.
Is it? What's it on?
30, but it goes quick when I'm watching videos.
But it is a nice night out here tonight, like I say. 3 or 4 degrees cooler out here. Yeah, I think they eat just about anything. I think you're right, Gloria. I think they'll even eat meat. I think they'll eat whatever they have to. We get grasshopper swarms in Australia. We haven't had many of the last few years. I think it's just been too hot, to be honest. But I remember driving through millions of them and the sky going dark, there was that many, and they just eat everything. It's like they shred everything. Crickets, not so much. And these are tiny little crickets too, aren't they?
Yeah, because they're babies.
I've got 4 or 5, see if I can show them one. Oops. If I turn the camera around, you'll see. There's one. Tiny, it looks big, but it's not. It's probably ½ inch. Yeah, so it's probably about ½ inch long, and there's hundreds of them, but they don't seem to affect any of the plants or lawn. That's a small dinosaur, right? Okay, you say so. Crickosaurus. I think there are some crickets at Key Largo, but I think they're not Crickosauruses. I think they're called Butthurtsauruses. Shredding in leftover chicken pie for pot pie. Sounds good. You can put a bit of cream in it. Leftover chicken I tend to add a bit of seasoning. I take all the skin off when I'm making what you call a pot pie. We call it just a pie. And I'll put in, cream mainly. Like if I've made a chicken and vegetable dish, it's going to be a chicken and vegetable pot pie with cream. Oh yeah. Just get like when you're filling up the casing, if you get a tablespoon of either sour cream or normal cream, because you're only going to be cooking the pastry, the contents will be cooked, obviously. So the cream just adds that nice little texture. In other words, it's not really dry. Sometimes you'll make a chicken pot pie and it'll be too dry. So just a tablespoon of cream. I made homemade puff pastry 2 days ago, and I made homemade pasties. How I did it was actually lamb and vegetable. If you've seen a video I did a couple of days ago, it was lamb and vegetable stew. And we thought, yeah, we like it, but how about we put it in some homemade pastry, and they turned out pretty good. What I do with that, I drain a lot of the liquid off, of course, the reverse of what we were just saying about adding cream. I just put it over a sieve and I get a tablespoon. I just mix it around until it's not dry, but it's moist. You take all the liquid away. And then I made the pasties. And they were yum. Got one left. I finished the last of my homemade multi-grain buns, and they were huge. Even with leftover chicken, if you're going to make a pot pie, I don't know if you ever made curried chicken pot pies. Now, you've already cooked the chicken and whatever you've cooked with it, but how you can cheat is you, in a pan, you put in, say, 2 or 3 tablespoons of butter and, say, a tablespoon, depends how many pot pies you're making, just proportionate amount of curry powder, and you cook off the curry powder in the butter. And when that's done over a couple of minutes, then your leftover chicken and whatever veg you've got goes in there. You turn off the pan and you just mix everything through, and then you end up with a curry chicken pot pie. What's the best way to make a curry pie? Well, from the beginning, use curry, but if it's leftovers, you've got to be versatile. And the old melt the butter in a pan. Hello, Jojo. Melt the butter in the pan. Put 3 tablespoons of butter and a tablespoon of curry powder. Cook it off. Turn off the heat after it's done a couple of minutes and throw in the chicken. Curried chicken pies. It's funny, you know, curry is very popular in the UK and the ingredients come from India. But if you went to India and asked for a curry, they wouldn't know what you're talking about. I made a really great chicken casserole with zucchini. It was super easy. It was about 4 chicken thighs shredded, 2 zucchini diced, a can of cream, a chicken soup, and half a quarter of a can. Yeah, well, you know, I was saying in India, they don't call it curry. It's just a gravy. And there are hundreds of different types of gravy in India. It's when the English were there, and to surmise what they were eating, even though there was many different types of gravy, they called it curry. And the only curry you'll find in India is a curry leaf plant. And they don't even call it a curry leaf plant in India. Butter chicken's really easy to make. It's yum. But like I say, so there is no real curry. It's just gravy. And how they do it is mixtures of different herbs, spices, turmeric, chili powder. If you know curries, you know what I'm talking about. Coriander and all sorts of things. But it's gravy. Some make it with yogurt. Some make it with milk. Some make it just with a tomato base, like a Madras curry. But like I was saying, we've had a we had a good spell for about 2 weeks. That was only around about 90 every day, but it's been 100. It's been 100 today. It'll be 100 for the next 2 or 3 days. It'll be about 105 in a couple of days. But then we go down to about 90s and 85s, so that's good. Yeah, so curry is a British term, like when the Britons ruled India until 1948. They just explained the sensation that it was curry. So someone said, what's this? Oh, it's a curry. It could be of 100 different types of curry from India, but they call it gravy. And if you think about it, and a lot of people, I do it this way. When I make a curry, in brackets, I use all the herbs and spices, and then I get the gravy cooked. You know, you've cooked all the spices, the onions, the garlic, ginger, whatever you're using. When you've got the gravy nice and sizzling and bubbling, and Then you add in raw meat. A lot of people go, oh no, you've still got to... No, you don't. In fact, if you put raw chicken into a curry gravy, it soaks it all the way through. Oh, there's thousands of different gravies in India. You'll often hear people say, oh, the recipe is from southern India, or it's from western India, or northern India. It depends where you are, what type of gravy they use, as we call it, curry, in their dish. Some are just localized flavors, some are regional flavors. But if I asked Americans, how do you do, a brisket? I'm going to get 100 different recipes for brisket on how they do it.
Sorry, I have to kind of plug my phone in.
Just bring your charger.
I couldn't be bothered.
Oh, so you're going. Miss Siege, she is over here. I shall point the camera in her general direction. Yeah, I think, Laurie, the one ingredient that is universal to all gravies or curries is chili powder. Bit mild, bit hot. That's the heat element in any gravy for curries. Depends how hot you like it. Look, I mean, the irony is that many people don't know is that when you cut up a fresh chili, depending how hot it is, of course, but generally you use mild chilies, and you put it through your dish. You generally do it at the very last minute. Everyone saying good night to you?
Good night.
I'll be heading in myself shortly. Heat is something with fresh chilies I don't have a problem with. I can eat all of them, even the ones that are considered hot. I do like a nice curry, if you like, with chilies cut through it and cooked during the process. But I'll still add a little bit at the end, garnish, a bit of coriander, which I'm not real keen on, parsley, etc. But there's a lot of things you can do with the Indian gravies or curries that you could do like a casserole. Like you could put chicken. You could mutton is very, very common in India. They like mutton. I grew up in mutton in Australia. It's just cooked over a longer period. Very tasty. But Americans don't eat a lot of sheep. Not sure why. Maybe they think they're eating an Ugg boot with legs. Lamb is delicious. It's expensive. And they use lots of garam masala in gravies, and it's not specifically just one set of ingredients. Masalas are all different. It's how they're made up and what they put in them. You'll often see a lot of masalas used, which is like fresh garlic, ginger, coriander, you name it, lots of curry. And what they do is they'll marinate their meat in that with a bit of yogurt. And that's not the be-all and end-all, that's just marinating. But they'll use all those ingredients they marinated with in the actual gravy when they cook as well. I've planted all my cherry-type tomatoes over the last 3 weeks. All our big tomatoes, because we get so hot, they burn. Big tomato, sunshine, 40 degrees, it burns. I'm not a fan of mutton. Sadly, my mother-in-law hated it, so my first exposure it wasn't very good. Yeah, mutton is, I cook mutton, and it's probably, say a leg of mutton might be, I don't know, 8-10 pound. But I'll slow cook it for about 8 hours, 10 hours. It just falls off the bone. But it's an acquired taste. It's stronger than lamb, but a lot of people don't eat sheep in general in the US. I don't know why. A bit mystified by even just lamb chops. I think the biggest meat in the US, there's two of them, is pork and chicken. Chicken probably wins hands down in the US, I guess. But here it's probably sausages, lamb, steak, pork chops, roast pork. But lots of people have barbecues and they'll have sausages and steak and rissoles, which is ground beef mixed in with onion or whatever you like, squeezed into a ball and put on a barbie. Pasture destroyers. Well, not really. We've got a lot of pasture. Some of our farms are huge and they don't even know how many sheep they've got. Could be, I don't know, a few million, but they don't know. They round them up each time and process them. I had a friend in the US who was really into cooking as well. But she said basically that no, every night of the week's pretty similar. They'll have Monday night this, Tuesday night that. It's like a traditional, like they have a traditional set of meals, unless there's leftovers, and then they'll make something as you're doing with leftovers. But it's just what they do. She said it's a family thing, lovely. In the UK, roast beef or pork or roast chicken with veg is a Sunday evening meal or lunchtime meal in the UK, Sunday roast. That's about as far as it goes, I think, other than I'm pretty sure the US is the same as Australia and the UK. People head down on Fridays for fish and chips in general. A lot of fish and chip shop owners say they're always busiest on Fridays. But sometimes food defines a culture, or the reverse, the culture defines the food. You go to certain countries, like in Thailand, food is magnificent. The large property are mainly cattle, maybe you want to raise sheep, or run off at many. Yeah, I don't know why. I mean, if someone concentrated on producing lambs, which a lamb is under 12 years of age, and they concentrated on lamb chops and lamb roasts, I'm sure it would take off in the US. But like I say, colloquially, each country don't eat certain meats. Not for religious reasons, just for preference reasons, which is fine. It's like sausages aren't a big thing in the US, though there are sausages, don't get me wrong. But you went to most Australian household fridge and you'd find a pack of a dozen or 2 dozen sausages in there for a barbecue that's going to happen. Or just cook up a few sausages each with some mash and gravy and beans and peas and carrots and things like that. I suppose of all the nations that I know eat a weird thing is Indonesia. They love sweet food. Yeah, I'm with you. Humanely killed or raised. I'm with you on that. Indonesia loves their sweets. You're more likely to get platefuls of sweet food than you are of savoury. Then you go to Thailand, and they love their sweet food as well. Why do French eat snails? Well, I've eaten snails. You can eat them. They're regular garden, grey, motley-looking shell things, about so big. You've got to purge them, which means you put them in an area where they can, say, feed them some wheat and they crap out all the other crap. Yeah, you've got to have, like in Australia, there are the cage eggs, if you want to call them that way, for example. They've got to have a certain space per chicken, but we always buy organic. And Australians, 99% of the eggs are organic now. That'd be right, the fire truck's around it. Boys, what are you doing? I was nearly finished. But yeah, so the friend I've had for over 20 years in the US says that they sort of traditionally have meals like Thanksgiving and whatever, but she's saying Monday to Friday, you could probably pick out of 7 or 8 types of meals they will have during the week. Weekends, pretty much the same as in Australia. If it's nice weather, they'll throw in the barbecue or smoke something. you go to places like Vietnam or Thailand, the variety of food is staggering. Like in India, the food is staggering. In other words, you'd be dead before you read all the menus. There's just so much different variety. And Thai food is absolutely yum. I think we've been there twice. I think an average meal in a fairly good establishment, not a backyard, but I've eaten off warangs, which are street foods. But in an average little restaurant in Thailand, you have a huge feast of food. And in Australian dollars, it'd probably be about 12 for 2 people, which for the US, that means about 9. And you wouldn't have to eat for the rest of the day. There's so much food. But when you go there, like in Vietnam and Thailand in particular, you will eat little bits of food. Have something early in the morning, maybe something about 1 o'clock. Maybe it gets a bit warm, you don't eat till about 7. I've only got my phone, I've got to keep reading up. French art Newlands eat snails. People in Germany, Great Britain, yeah, all over the place. They are very expensive. If you go to a restaurant in Australia and say I'd like some escargot with some butter and garlic and fresh parsley, they'll charge you a fortune. And how do you actually catch them? Really easy. On the dark side of your property, wherever it gets a lot of shadow, just stick up a big board up against the fence. Forget about it. Do nothing. And in the middle of winter, for about 8 or 9 weeks, just lean the board back and scrape off 100 snails, purge them, then cook them. Trust me, you will eat them. If there's nothing else to eat, you would eat them. If I had a big menu in front of me and it had snails in there, I'd probably go for the steak, like most people. But if the menu came out and it just said there's only 4 and they're all snails done in garlic or whatever, you'd eat them. I was looking at a documentary in 1998. Canada had the big freeze for about 5 or 6 days. Power lines smashed down, all sorts of things, no power. And the documentary went on to say, and it's a very valid point, just as this bit's cold because it was so warm, it would be, that's right, it'd just be water. Yeah, each country's what you say it is, Gloria. It's different. And I love the food defines the culture. In other words, you understand why they eat it, and, regionally different foods. Anyway, this documentary, quickly I'll tell you about it, and that is, it was to do with the big freeze in 1998 in Canada and how people suffered and died, some people died. But it went on to explain if we had an extended ice stage, say for 50 years, a lot of people would die. But for a strange reason, it explained why they'd die more easily. And that is, go back to our ancestors, even just a couple of 100 years ago. They had a fairly minimal range of food for seasonal, and they would make food last and they would preserve it. In other words, they had the skills. Whereas modern man loses his phone, his internet, his power.
I'm going to bed.
I just saw a hand come down then.
Yeah. Well, you should say, shut up, I'm going to bed. Good night.
Oh, she's in a smoky mist.
Night.
Yep, I'm going to come in too. Anyway, surmising that documentary, it shows how ill-prepared we are in our modern worlds. These lights go off. Well, my solar lights won't go off. But if there's no internet, no television, all the shops are closed because they can't keep anything. Our ancestors were more prepared than we are. What does that mean? Well, the planet is very unstable on many levels, politically, money-wise, health-wise. And I'm no prepper or doomsdayer, but the one thing that if you can learn now, above everything else, is knowledge. There's a good one, canning. You don't actually have to boil in canning as long as you've had the preservatives. I've got many, many jars of pickles and relishes and different types of sauces that have enough salt and sugar in them that they don't need to be refrigerated. They don't need to be boiled in canning. what canning does is make your food last a lot longer. So if you can learn both methods, because one of the most easiest preservatives to use is a brine, which is generally roughly 50-50 water and 50% vinegar. Then add your sugar and your salt and whatever you want to add to it. So, and brining is one of the most common of preserves to use, which is just a very simple method. Just vinegar and water, salt if you've got it, and sugar if you want sweet. But like I say, if the lights go off, the power ends, and people just can't go and get something with their card, money won't mean a damn thing. But one thing you can store, and that is knowledge. If you have knowledge, you have a survivable situation. Having no knowledge and expect someone to come and save you, under certain circumstances, it's not going to happen. I opened a few years ago the last jar of my grandmother's bread and butter pickles. She canned them in 1987. Yeah, I've got bread and butter pickles I made this year. They don't last that long here though. I've only got, I think, a couple of jars left. But you're right. There was no fridges I bet she used. She just used salt, vinegar, maybe sugar to add a bit of sweetness, or honey. She would have had her own certain method. And I bet they tasted just as good as the day she made them. Anyway, on that ominous note about having to gain knowledge to survive, I'm going to turn the lights off and go to bed. Good to catch up with you people. Those in the US, have a good day. Those in Australia that are watching in their bed, half asleep, go to bed, because I am. Good night, everyone.